tech issues today. So I'm on my old laptop. So let's all pray that this doesn't all just collapse around my ears. That would be super awkward. The cat chewed through the Logitech webcam cable. Rang my electrician. He said, no, just going to have to buy a new one. So we're on the old laptop today. And so, yeah, please bear with. Cameras are in the different position. But my guest today is Kurt Friedel from KAI at Virginia Tech. Now, he's going to give you the proper introduction to that and what that all means. That's lots of like symbols and letters, isn't it? But yeah, he's coming from America. It's early morning there. It's like 9-ish in the morning.
8 a.m.
8 a.m. So we're very fortunate to have you get up early for us. Thank you.
Yeah, no
the audience is just arriving, so that's lovely. And we do have quite a big audience in America as well. So hopefully they're all going to get up a little bit early as well today to join us. So a bit of a backstory on this is Kurt works at the KAI Centre. You're going to have to correct me on a lot of this stuff in a minute. And if you go onto the little call to action button at the bottom of this screen, you'll see it says book here for the KAI Symposium. So you'll get through to the website that way. He works at the KAI Centre at Virginia Tech. And I got to know about Kurt through my very old friend. She's not old, but I've known her a long time. She'd be very upset if I called her old. Nicola Ryle. And her father invented the KAI, what do you call it? It's a theory. He came up with the theory. And sadly, Dr. Kirton passed away in August this year. And so Nicola is now managing the legacy of her father's legacy and working with Kurt. And over the years, Nicola and I have had many, many discussions about this because I've done lots of training on NLP and DISC, etc., which is all to do with psychometric testing. And she's explained to me about KAI many times, and I never really got it. Didn't really get it. And then she said, right, I want you to talk to Kurt. And I had this amazing chat. And it was a little bit life-changing, to be honest. It was a bit life-changing. You explaining the difference between an adapter and an innovator, and how you bridge the gap and what and how that can help you creatively problem solve, changed the game for me. I was like, really? This just shows, doesn't it? Listen more than you speak, Lesley. So I'm going to hand the stage over to Kurt, and he's going to tell us about the KAI theory, and then a little bit about the centre as well, and then about the symposium, and how we can use it, because I now understand how I can use it, and I'm going to go the next level and do the training, etc., to bring that over here for my community. But it'd be really great to hear a bit of backstory from Kurt, you know, how he got into it, and then, yeah, away you go, because It's life-changing.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, I'll talk about, let me start with what we do here, and then talk about the theory, and then go from there. So yes, Nicola manages or directs the KAI Distribution Center, which sells KAIs, which is a psychometric inventory, which determines if you're more adaptive or more innovative. And my partnership with Nicola here at Virginia Tech is to carry out that work to advance the teaching, the research, the outreach of the theory. So it's a great partnership. We're very happy to have it. And so what it is Dr. Kirton in the 60s had a funded study, and in terms with British English, it was basically, why do big businesses stop innovation or inhibit innovation? And he ended that study, published a little book and some case studies, and ended up with more questions and answers. And he kept working on those questions for about 14 years and developed a theory and the measure which tests the theory called the KAI. And so what it is it's an aspect of problem solving. In the function of problem solving, some people are more adaptive and some people are more innovative. More adaptive people tend to be those who think inside the box. They're very detail-oriented. They like change and evolutionary steps, tweaks. So if a system's broken or something needs fixed, to the more adaptive individual, the preference is to tweak it, to make it better, to make it more efficient. Contrast that to the more innovative. The more innovative have lots of ideas, not by nature of wanting to have more ideas as an aspect of intelligence, but their philosophy is you have to have a lot of ideas, maybe a few bad ideas before you come up with a good one. They tend to have ideas inside and outside the box because they're less aware of the box. And they prefer revolutionary change. So if the system isn't working, to the innovative, it's better to crack it, break it, and possibly swap it out with something else. So we can measure this preference accurately. It's an aspect of personality. The mean is at 95. It's a normal distribution curve or a bell curve, if you prefer to call it that. 95 to 32. If you have a score between 95 and 32, you're more adaptive. 95 to 160, you're more innovative. And that might be how you identify as a problem solver or someone who's creative. But it's also important to recognize where you're at on that continuum. So we're not putting anyone into boxes. You're not strictly adaptive or innovative. It's also about where you're at on that continuum. So let's just say, for example, I'm a 110, Lesley's a 120, and we have someone else in the room who's a 130. Even though we're all innovators, as we identify as being more innovative, I'm the most adaptive person in the room. And so there's also an element of relevance here. And what's really cool is Dr. Kirton really focused on creativity because as his work was growing in the theory, creativity was where psychology was moving to. We had the Sputnik moment, or we have the race to space, and education was focused on how can we improve the teaching of creativity to our youth and others. And Dr. Kirton went out to say, well, hold on a minute. There's two types of creativity. The brain really can't distinguish between problem solving and creativity. We use those terms synonymously often, and we can dive deeper in that down the road here. And you're trying to teach level of creativity, meaning how creative can you be? What I'm talking about is how are you creative? What is your style of creativity? What is your style of problem solving? And that is independent of each other. And so if all the world is problem solving, we start seeing creativity and problem solving everywhere. And the goal of the theory, or I should say, one of the aims of the theory is separation of style and level, that we can have a conversation with two people who are equally intelligent, have equal values, equally motivated to solve the problem, but are coming at it from two very different perspectives because of how they prefer to solve the problem, either to adapt or to innovate. And we can measure that gap where people have that disconnect. So
it's just fascinating because what you were saying, I mean, I don't think anyone who works with me or for me is going to be surprised about my score. Nicola certainly wasn't surprised about my score. I was quite on the extreme of the innovator end of the metric. And that's not right or wrong, that just is. And that was fascinating to me because I was like, now I can accept myself. Why do I always want to chuck the baby out with the bathwater? It was so frustrating at times in my life. And I was always challenging. I was always called insubordinate. I found it very difficult to work for other people. And that made me think that I had a problem. There was a problem. I couldn't work for people easily because I would ask difficult questions that they didn't want to answer. I would challenge everything. I would always come up with solutions that people didn't even know they wanted. It was like, here's a solution. Well, hang on a minute. I didn't know we had a problem. And so that led me to become it led me to have some of the issues that I had that held me back. It created some limiting beliefs in me that, and one of them contributed to the one that said, you're an idiot. You've got no intelligence whatsoever. You must be an idiot, because you can't work with people. So you must be an idiot. And so that didn't help. And it also contributed to the one where I had a bit of a victim syndrome, because I was terrified of going into a room because I was always attacked, because I'd go in and ask a question and everyone was prepared for this now. So they were like straight in on me. And I made that into a massive issue, which definitely held me back for a while. And it wasn't until I became more aware of myself, did some of this training and such, that I was like, hang on a minute, this is just a personality tendency. I can actually use some of this to get me where I want to be. I just have to go about it a different way. Just to go, it's like going on the motorway and the sat nav says you've got to go on the fast, the short, or the easiest route, isn't it? And like, well, there's other routes. I'm going to take a different route. So that helped me from that perspective. And I discovered that through doing all of the psychology and the other awareness training that I did, NLP and such like. But the revelation for me within KAI, when I was talking to you, was the fact that I have sometimes found it difficult to work with other people. And it's the bridge. And when you said to me that if the bridge is more than 20, you're going to have to work at it. You're going to have to work at it. It's not that they're right and you're wrong or vice versa. It's just you're going to have to work at it.
Yeah, we can measure that. So it's a scale between 32 and 160. And for the math people out there, the standard deviation is about 18 points. So what we found at 20 points seems to be the threshold where we have two people having difficulty communicating with each other, working together, and even trusting each other in that context. So if we have two people who choose a problem solved together, that's where the difficulty can be. And it can happen on the innovative side, it can happen in the middle, it can happen on the adaptive side. And if you can imagine, we often see teams with people who have 60, 70, 80 point gaps, who just for the life of them don't see the problem the same way. And I need to build on coping behavior here. So one style is innate, it's stable. Dr. Kirton always says highly resistant to change, and we have very little evidence to show that it changes as you get older. It doesn't change on your situation. It's independent of culture, so this normal distribution tends to hold true whether you're in Asia, Russia, Europe, United States, South America, Africa, and but we can all operate outside that style. It requires awareness. It requires motive, and it requires a learned skill set to operate. So wherever you are at on the continuum, you can choose to be more adaptive or more innovative in your behavior. Your personality doesn't change, but you can operate outside your score if you have the motive to do so. It's taxing to the brain, it's stressful, and we've documented that through research. I'll say it's easier to cope 10 points for a day, but if I'm coping 40 or 50 points, that's difficult for a couple hours. So it's exponential with intensity and duration.
And that's interesting, because when I did my KAI, Phil did it, you said to me there was an anomaly, an anomaly, didn't you? You questioned me about an anomaly on my form.
Yeah, there was a variation. I forget where it was, but I remember it being insightful for you.
Yeah, and it was because I am aware that my behavior can be challenging, because I like to work in groups. I like to collaborate. I like to work with other people. But I'd realized, obviously through this process, that some of my behavior was difficult for other people. So I'd created a kind of workaround. But it's not a massive workaround, so I don't feel out of alignment with myself. I've just managed to put in some structure into my behavior that means that I can work with it collaboratively, because I enjoy that. So I'd put that in, and that's showing up in my score. I don't think it changed the score. It just showed up on the when I
in the
completed
scores. Yeah.
that I'd created a coping tactic, really mainly for Nicola, if I'm honest, because she hated me being late for everything. She got very cross with me. She'll laugh when she's watching this. Used to get very cross with me because I'm, you know, I'd always get excited by an idea and go off at a tangent and forget where I was meant to be. And so I've created this strategy of time management that works for me, so I don't feel stressed. And that's now become part of my ingrained behavior, is this coping technique that is a workaround for that bit of my personality.
Yeah. It's incredibly insightful, taking the KAI. And I think one thing that it helps do is, because people aren't naturally aware of it, we tend to explain these issues in other ways. You know, so for example, I gave the KAI to an individual, and she learned to score, and she attributed all of her, as she called them, issues as well. I'm an only child, and it changed her whole worldview, because, well, yes, she's an only child, but this is her personality, and this is why she does some of the things she does. So I when I work with companies, sometimes it's you know, some of the companies are looking at differences of race or nationality or gender or ageism, and those are all important things, and do happen. I don't want to take away from any of that, but sometimes the disagreement isn't those things. It's actually this thing called problem-solving style.
Absolutely, and you just said, you know, that, and as I explained earlier, that can create this like belief system, like she believed she was like that because she was an only child, and these beliefs can be terribly destructive in our lives. And we've come to realize that IQ doesn't predispose you to success. It's all these other things, and the more we dig into them, just makes you realize how advanced Dr. Kirton was in his thinking back in the 60s. You know, he was so ahead of the game. Yeah. And we don't really know this system in the UK. He was very active, obviously, out in America. You've been very privileged out there to be able to work with this system. We don't really have it here. And I know that's one of Nicola's ambitions. And I know it was here, being used in one of the business schools, I think Cranfield. But you were saying to me that the Army also used it, like the Navy SEALs. I loved that bit. Oh, yeah. That made it all very sexy. It was almost like one of those movies from Hollywood. Yeah.
Military actively uses it, the Navy SEALs. And I believe military in the UK too for some time, and different branches use it more readily than others. I lost my train of thought a little bit, but it just gives a lot of insight to how, well, let me say it this way: you can predict how someone's going to respond in a problem-solving environment, and that's very critical when lives are on the line. And you know what's really cool is Dr. Kirton fought in World War II, and during the KAI symposium, Rob Sheffield was able to interview him while he's still alive and ask him questions about how he developed the theory. And even though the studies that led him to the theory were in the 60s, going into the 70s, he was noodling on this for quite some time. Like, he was very observant. I remember one of the things they talked about in the video clip that's going to be at the tribute to Dr. Kirton at the symposium is that he noticed in the military, some people solve problems because they were asked to solve problems, and some people did not. Some people solved problems whether they were asked to or not. They ignored orders, or and that was very and that was very curious to him. Why did some people not necessarily obey command, but say, here's the problem, solve it, and they did what they were asked to do? And some people were asked to solve a problem, and they didn't solve that problem in particular. They solved a different problem in response. And so
such a familiar experience. Anyone who's ever worked with me will be like, oh yes, we can now see what's going on here. that, you know, that just brought up all that, you know, Alan Turing and the Enigma. I just wonder if he ever bumped into him, because I can imagine those two would have had an amazing conversation.
Yeah.
Alan Turing was like, it must have been high on the innovator scale. And what was Dr. Kirton? Was he innovator or adaptive? Or are we not allowed to reveal that? Is that
his response was he never took the KAI, so he doesn't know.
I wonder if Nicola has kind of like filled it in for him. Well, I'll have to ask.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to the symposium, and if people want to have a look at that, you can click on the call to action at the bottom there. Thank you, Vincent, for adding in, oh yes, Lesley. Vincent's worked with me now for about 11 years. And so he's very familiar with, as I say, you know, I've done some workarounds. I hope I'm a bit more pleasant to work with than I was when I was 21. I must have been vile. I need to go back and apologize to those people. You know, one poor man who I was so difficult because I could never take an instruction. I would always have to question everything. And he found it so frustrating and annoying.
Yeah.
So I do owe, if anyone's watching, I apologize. Okay. I was young. I was excitable. I'm still excitable. I'm just a bit older and a bit more aware now. So I have put in some workarounds. But yeah, go and have a look at the symposium. I'm definitely going. It's going to be fascinating. Can you talk us through what's going to happen at the symposium, what we're likely to see and hear?
Yeah. We have some research presentations from practitioners around the world. What's great about a lot of the KAI practitioners that we certify to use the KAI is they're high-level users. They're interested in data. A lot of them have PhDs, and they're going to present on everything from business to concepts of diversity to let me think, some military examples, business examples, some science of teams. We're going to have two keynote speakers. The first is Kanesh Raja, who is just an amazing individual, has experience advising governments and companies around the world. He's over there in the UK with his center. And then the second keynote speaker is a friend of mine, Seth Durner, from Nebraska. He started a company called Vivek with a co-founder, Doug Keeker. And what's very cool about them is they started this company, and they do a lot of education for different companies around the country. And they said to themselves when they first started out, we don't care where you live, we want the best people. And so you can stay living there. So they've been operating virtually for years, long before COVID-19. So they have a lot of experience to offer us in terms of how to do it well. So great people doing that. We have a tribute to Dr. Kirton. We'll have some facilitated networking time, and then we'll have a session on the future of KAI. Now that Dr. Kirton's passed away, you know, Nicola, Megan, Seibel, and I will be talking more about that. You know, plans, thinkings, directions, and so forth.
Oh, I mean, it sounds fascinating. I love the idea. So you grew up in Nebraska, didn't you?
Yeah.
Which is why you've got that connection. And we were talking about that because it snowed here, and I was telling, slight deviation here, but I was telling Kurt that we've got snow and we don't get snow very often in the south of England, down near the coast. So it's very exciting. But, you know, growing up in Nebraska, this was like an everyday experience for you. But when you did the interview, which will be live later on the website, you'll be able to read it. We just do a very quick Q&A with our guests so people can get a bit of an insight into who you are, because lots of people watch these videos, obviously, after the event. And I said, what was the most significant influence on you? And you said growing up in Nebraska. Tell us, what is growing up in Nebraska?
Well, it's funny. The state motto is the good life. And there was a marketing campaign done a couple of years ago, and they said, well, it's not for everyone. And
the good life, you can't all have it.
Yeah. There's places where it's quite desolate. You know, there's more cows than people. And so I grew up on a cattle ranch, and just very fortunate, in my opinion, to have a family that were homesteaders. So my great grandfather was a homesteader. got a tract of land from the government as long as he stayed there for so many years, and that land is still in the family. And because there's not a lot of people out there, I ended up going to school in a one-room schoolhouse. So I had one classmate from kindergarten on to 7th grade. And funny enough, we went to city school, which is about 12 miles away, because my classmate was very athletic. I was athletic, but not quite as athletic as he was. And his parents really wanted him to play in high school sports. So we went to town schools for that. But yeah, and just thinking, my best memories are from Nebraska, and my one of my favorite authors wrote about where you see a sunrise or sunset and it's 180 degrees because flat land, blue sky, prairie, and it's like you see the floor of the sky.
Wow, that's quite a vision. And as lots of creatives will be watching this, I'm hoping that we're going to see some artwork on the back of that.
Yeah.
That is just that. Yeah, I love that. When I go out to the south of France quite a lot, and looking out that light, you can see why artists were motivated to work in those places. The light and the panorama, as you say, you just see this 360-degree view. Is just incredible. So that's inspiring place to grow up. But what most inspiring for me is, you've got a PhD, you're a doctor, you're working on some really high level stuff, and you went to a one-room schoolhouse with one other guy.
Yeah.
Nothing, people listen, nothing can hold you back. If you can imagine it, you can have it, you can be it, and you can do it. I was talking on a program last night with somebody, and I said, look, I was the least confident child. I didn't have a difficult childhood. It wasn't terrible, but I was so unconfident, and I would try and hide. I would literally try and become invisible. Hadn't read Harry Potter at that point, hadn't even been thought of. If only it had, I would have bought myself the invisibility cloak, which wouldn't have been helpful. But I was I came to this world terrified and wanting to hide. And yet now, as Yasidi said, I've grown up, I've become more aware of myself, I've walked into my superpowers, and I can imagine it. So now I can do it. And it doesn't matter whether I'm highly innovative and people find me challenging and I found a workaround, or whether I went to a really expensive school or I went to a school with one. It's about what you make of it. These are all tools. The KAI, the understanding, they're all tools that you can use to help you get where you want to be. Get out of life, get the good life. Go to Nebraska, people. Get the good life. But that's it, isn't it? So someone on Lloyd on Facebook is saying, yeah, the Navy SEALs used it. Read Stealing Fire. Oh, I didn't know. So is it mentioned in the book, I wonder? So I don't know that many people who are using it in the UK. As you say, it's not, a lot of people, DISC is very highly discussed here. And then when you go for interviews, you often have a psychometric test. It doesn't have a title or a name. But I'm hoping, as Nicola and you work together with this going forward, that it's going to become more apparent in the UK, and people will be, because it's so easy to understand.
Yeah, it's very simple. And Dr. Kirton put a lot of effort into making the theory elegant and simple. There's quite a bit of parsimony to it. One of the key nuggets that I think really puts things together is what Dr. Kirton called problem A and problem B. Problem A is the task at hand. It's why the group forms, because they have a shared interest in solving a problem. And that problem is problem A. Problem B's are distractions from problem A, simply defined. And just thinking about whether it's leadership or working in teams or what have you, marriage, relationships, problem A and problem B apply in a lot of places. And so what are problem Bs? Problem Bs can be anything from gaps of differences in values, lack of resources, lack of time, differences of opinion, miscommunications, but one significant factor we'll add to that is when, excuse me, we have a gap in problem-solving style. You want to innovate and I want to adapt, or vice versa, and that creates a problem B. So we got to talk about, discuss, and really at the heart of problem B is this idea that I think my ideas are better because of who I am, whether that's my status, my identity, could be my race, my problem-solving style, my gender, or what have you, and that degree of contempt really creates problem Bs. If we're able to keep our egos in check and recognize that there's a mutual respect here, you respect me for who I am and I respect you for who you are, problem Bs tend to iron themselves out quite a bit. The other aspect of problem Bs, which is I think what we're dealing with a lot more in today's society, is in the solving of problem A, I am not getting fair reward for my contributions in solving problem A as everyone else. And that's troubling to me because of who I am. And so that's also an issue we need to address. If you're contributing to the solving of problem A, you should get fair reward for your efforts in helping solve problem A.
That is something that you just hit the nail firmly on the head. Anyone would think you knew who you were talking to, because that's, a massive issue with creatives is that, they are providing the entertainment, the emotion, they're explaining things for people, they're helping people channel their emotions, they're providing a lovely environment for people, etc. But in this industry, systemically in this industry, people are not paid. Not paid properly. They're not paid. And everyone is, could you do this for me for free? Mm-hmm. Well, why? Why? I'm providing a service for you. And this has created this massive limiting belief within creatives that they can't charge. And then when they do, they can't charge a fair price for what they are contributing to society. It's a bit like a diversity issue, isn't it? It's a bit like all of the issues. It's they're not being valued for their contribution to society. And how do we deal with that? How do we get around it? I mean, I know I'm constantly advocating and telling them to charge properly and pay properly for the services you want and charge properly for what you're doing.
So my work is often applied to nonprofits and social change. And so, let's say you're running a nonprofit and you're acting as a social change agent. And, for example, I don't know if you have them in the UK, but one example I'm thinking of is Bombas Socks. And so what Bombas Socks has discovered was the most needed and requested thing of people who are homeless or in poverty was socks. So for every pair of socks that you buy, they'll donate a pair of socks for free. And not that I'm promoting Bombas Socks, but just as an example of this. Some people who are running a nonprofit like that believe they should not be making a ton of money. So what happens is your values get in the way of your bottom line, really. So we really have to have a conversation with ourselves in this. In my mind, I think I align more with you, Lesley, that we still have to put food in the refrigerator. We still have to take care of the kids, or maybe it's our elderly, whatever that is. We still have to make money to do those things. And so sometimes our values get in the way of that. And I can understand the feeling, but why is a nonprofit offering free things in the name of social change different from any other company who also needs to make money to pay their bills?
Yeah, I do feel that there's some enabling going on. I really do, in that our values definitely get in the way, and we're enabling people to exploit. We're enabling the exploitation. We're kind of helping the system give it energy by not having that serious talk with ourselves. And I always say, why do you think you don't deserve to own your own house? Why don't you deserve to have aspirations, to have enough money? Enough money for you and enough money for me is completely different. You can have as much money as you want. Money is just a tool.
Yeah.
It's just a tool. I think it's this whole concept of money. It's, especially in the UK, this cultural perception of money being dirty, and the money mindset of like, oh, people with money must be greedy. They must be money grabbing. That's another. It's complete rubbish. It is all a system to hold you back from having what you want. And if you can imagine it, you can have it. And I now say, actually, it's unethical for you not to charge the right price, because you are now saying to someone, my work isn't worth this, so therefore all the other people who make work like this aren't worth it either. Well, who are you to make the decision for the other 1,000 artists who are making abstract landscapes? You're not. It's not your right. It's not your business ethically to make that decision on behalf of everybody else. You make it for yourself. And it's not your right to therefore completely cast aside every other artist. So it's our ethical duty to charge the right price. That's how it works. And it's about giving value. So if you feel you're giving value, charge fair value for it. It's a massive conversation for another day. But, I think this understanding yourself, being more aware, really helps you to unpick that. And you said a lot of the times you've said like the problem A and the problem B. The problem B is solved by conversation and communication, isn't it? And you said that a lot in, we need to have a conversation. We need to talk about that. And how many times do we not want to talk about it? Do we just want to shove it under the rug? Yeah. We don't like confrontation. How does KAI help us with that?
That's a great question. A lot of it hinges again on mutual respect, humility. One of the, a couple things. One of the ideas that Dr. Kirton promoted often was the idea of devil's advocate, which is a technique you can use to say, hey, I have this idea, just playing devil's advocate. What do you think about this? And what it does is it removes yourself from the idea. And so people aren't questioning, well, why did you have that idea? What are the politics behind it? What's your motive? What are you really after? Let's just talk about the idea. And what that does is it creates a safe space to judge the idea on its merits. But you're right, Lesley. It's having conversations. I think a lot of it's building relationships.
Absolutely agree. This relationship thing is key. And we talk, again, another conversation we have a lot within the community is, especially now with the proliferation of social media, and we're saying, it's a relationship tool. Use it to build relationships. If you build relationships, everything else will fall into place, because you'll be able to do this, have a conversation held in a safe place without anyone feeling judged. That just triggered off a memory for me when my kids were small, and we'd be in the car and we'd be driving, and they'd go, "Don't be offended, or I don't mean to be rude, but," and we'd always go, "Yeah, you're going to be rude. Okay, go for it." And it would always trigger off a massive conversation in the car about whatever it is they decided they wanted to have a chat about, but they wanted to precursor it with, which was their version of devil's advocate, wasn't it? And so now my children will come to me with something and they'll say, "Now I want to talk about this, Mum. Can we do it the short version?" And I'm like, no, I don't do short version.
Yeah, it's funny. One thing I've often talked about is being able to disagree without being disagreeable.
Yeah.
So many times I see, especially with our younger people, this notion of on social media canceling people who you disagree with because you don't want to see someone else's thoughts. Well,
blocking.
Blocking. It's, I guess I'm of the mindset that if that person has different opinions, what's the matter with that person having different opinions? It doesn't bother me any. It takes everyone to make the world go round, and maybe you might have some better ideas than I do on some things, and those opinions aren't a mark of your intelligence or who you are. It's just different thinking. So we can disagree without being disagreeable.
I absolutely agree. I think that's absolutely about being respectful of other people's perspectives, because we just never know what we might hear. We can choose just to turn away and not listen to it. We can choose what we consume, because that thing about you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Well, remember that social media is part of that now, and all of these other things are part of that 5 people now. You can just leave it all on and decide which bits of it you want to consider, because it gives you perspective. It gives you another way of thinking about things. And we, as we're talking about, we have a set way of thinking that's ingrained in us. This just gives an opportunity to create coping, be more understanding of other people. We live in bubbles, don't we?
Yeah.
We live in a bubble. And in order to, I have a fear of the known. Most people have fear of change. Obviously, I'm an innovator. So I have a fear of the known. I have a fear of average, of the same happening every day. I get excited when someone comes to me and says, oh my God, this is a massive crisis. I'm like, great. Yes. Right, let's get into this. How can we solve this? This is really exciting. And other people are different. But I know when I talk, and like when we've been talking today, people would have picked up little nuggets of this. They may not agree with everything we say, and quite frankly, you don't need to.
No.
But if some of it you've learned something about yourself, and that's that thing, build relationships, proper relationships with people, invest, engage. If you don't share values, then you're going to find some of their opinions offensive. It's inevitable, isn't it?
Yeah. One of the things we teach in the theory is how we each have a paradigm, how we view the world. We all tell ourselves stories about how the facts relate to each other to make sense of the world. And we have to have a sense of the world, and we have to have a sense of ourselves, so we can make good use of ourselves in the world. But adaptation innovation theory applies in that some people are more adaptive in their view of the world, some people are more innovative in their view of the world. We want to see the world in the way that we portrayed it. So it's difficult when we come up against things that may not make sense or disagree with our paradigm view. Where the theory comes when it comes to like product development and creativity, if you're more adaptive and you want to sell something that's more to a more innovative individual, maybe it's not making it more innovative, just describe the aspects that are different and exciting about it. And if you have an innovator describing something to a more adaptive individual, describe how there are efficiencies, there's betters, there's improvements. And so that helps the communication process as well in terms of managing change.
I think, that helps in the selling, doesn't it? When you're thinking about, because obviously creatives are selling to every type. They're selling to all types. And I love that when they say, I only sold one, so that's it. That's obviously rubbish. And it's like, no, you just, it's audience. Right. Find your audience. And there's a massive spectrum of audience out there. Worldview is a massive topic, isn't it? And, our view of the world. And I saw the other day, someone said, this blew my mind. There's no such thing as sky. It's like, if you went up in a rocket, you wouldn't go, I've just passed the sky, would you? And I was like, no, I've got to compute. I can't. What do you mean there's no sky? I've got to compute that whole thing now of this rocket going through the atmosphere. Yeah. And I'm like, we've got to give new names to stuff. They just changed my entire world view on how the world sits with Earth, sea and sky. Well, they've just taken sky out of my game. That's funny. How am I going to deal with that now? And that is just being I've been listening. I listen to loads of podcasts and stuff. I'm always interested in other people's viewpoints, because it does help you grow, and learning helps you grow all the time. And I want to grow and be a useful human, be here on this earth doing something useful, not just breathing and using up resources.
Yeah, I think we could approach the world with the idea that everyone has something to teach us. And I don't know what that is, but if I hang around long enough, you can teach me something. And so I think that's one of the greatest compliments I can give someone is you taught me something that I didn't know before. And, if Dr. Kirton had a way of looking at it is, when we're interacting with another individual, we have three options. We can collaborate with that individual, we can ignore them, or we can compete against them. And it's when we start thinking about, well, they're wrong and I'm right, that's when we start entering competition. And so many times in public discourse of our worldviews, I think if we could just think about that and say, well, no, they offer something that's valuable to me. I don't have to compete with them. I can still learn something from them. And, they've experienced some truth that I have not. And that if I can learn just a little bit more about their truth, maybe I can build on to be more knowledgeable about the topic overall. Because maybe not go there, but I just think that there's so oftentimes we're limited by our own worldviews. We're discounting everyone else's worldviews, and they have most of the time no reason for lying about those experiences. And if we listen long enough, we can discover that their arguments may not be articulated well because we're not understanding them, but if we listen closely enough, they're more aligned than what we're thinking anyway. That they agree more with us than we realize. Too often we take our best arguments against someone else's worst arguments. But if we compare arguments and start thinking, well, hey, they got some pretty good arguments here, how does that really align with my good arguments? And then we can have progress.
Yeah, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
You take your best argument and their best argument, and that's it. You're going to have magic, aren't you? Life is not a competition. We can go into it with the intention, and this is something again I spoke about yesterday. I set my intention every morning that today's going to be a great day. I'm going to learn and grow. Doesn't matter whether that doesn't mean that everything's going to be great and I'm not going to be faced with horrible things, because life's like that. It does chuck you up the odd challenge, and horrible things happen, of course they do. But if you go into it with the intention that you're going to listen and learn, and you're going to grow from the experience, then every day is great. Every day is going to be cool. And I love that. Ignore, collaborate, learn. It's not a competition. You don't have to compete. You can compete if you want to, if that gives you a bit of motivation to, work a bit harder and faster. But such an insightful man. I mean, I obviously had the privilege of meeting him quite a few times in, not in a work scenario, but in a family scenario. I am actually godparent to all five of Nicola and Angus's children. So I met Dr. Kirton and his wife, and he had a very long marriage as well. And I think when you were touched on that about, the problem A and problem B, you solve the problem A because you're in a relationship, and then problem B's come along. How do you end up in a long-standing marriage? Well, it's certainly not by ignoring your partner. It's by collaboration. It's by learning together. It's about growing together. And, I've been married for 32 years, and I know Nicola has been married. She's 1 year ahead of me. And, we definitely have used that. Let's not, put aside, Dr. Kirton could be challenging.
Yeah.
Could be a challenging man, but fascinating. I have found this conversation, I've learned even more, Kurt, than when we had our last conversation, and I'm very grateful for you for sharing all of this. I hope lots of people will join me at the symposium. And I will get Nicola on to have a chat next time I do the talks, because I think hearing how once you've done the symposium and she's discussed how she's going to how she sees the KAI going in the future, then it'll be really interesting to have her viewpoint. Nicola and I worked together at Coca-Cola.
Okay.
She gathered the data, I analysed the data, and then sold more fizzy water. And we both decided this wasn't our dream job. This wasn't our life. This is not what we wanted, to be known for the people who really did well at selling coloured fizzy water to mums that ruined children's teeth. But we had a really good time. Let's not, play it down. We had a good time. We had a lot of fun. And we made some really great friends. But I've known her a long time, and I think she'd be fascinating. Her experience in marketing is second to none. Well, second to mine, but second to none.
Yeah. No,
I stand next to each other in marketing.
Yeah, she's delightful. She has lots of insight. Of course, she had the privilege of watching her dad, develop this and all of his thinking behind it. And she'll be a pleasure for you to have on. Yeah,
no, I'm really looking forward to it. But you've been an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed it. I'm very grateful you got up early for us. Kurt has had COVID, but you're looking really well. So for the last 2 weeks, you and your family have been very unwell, haven't you? So I'm just so delighted that you're healthy now.
Yeah, thanks. No, we were lucky. We were sick for several days, solid. I had a second round within the 2 weeks where I felt ill for a couple of days, where I was starting to get nervous because, I'll say I was definitely sicker with other flus or viruses, but just the uncertainty of this, the anxiety of okay, what's going to happen next. I do believe if you get COVID, the best thing you can do is just take care of yourself. Don't try to rush it, because you are tempted to, because you're not feeling as sick, to go out, do things at the computer, because we're all working from home anyway now. But the uncertainty of it is, I think people are getting long form is what they're discovering, where you have symptoms lasting weeks, if not months, is you're just not taking care of yourself. So take care of yourself out there.
Yeah, self-care is really important. I think, if you get it, go to bed. Go to bed and close your laptop and let the battery die. Don't be tempted. My husband had it back in March, and he had long COVID, so he was still suffering from symptoms in August. I've put him, Nicola's very impressed with this. I've put him on this very good, getting him well routine. He's now lost over 4 stone. So she's super impressed with this. He's looking great. He's healthier than he's ever been. So there is an upside. He was near to death, and he's now incredibly, well. He's been doing, when we were allowed to, he was doing Pilates and such like. We walk several times a week. So I've found the opportunity, although I'm incredibly grateful for everyone being healthy, and my mum has had the jab and everything, I found this opportunity to reset. They say reset the room, don't they? I've kind of reset the room, and now I have embedded a lot more self-care into my habits, and I'm determined to carry those through as things change. I don't think they'll ever go back to how they were before, but things will inevitably, other things will creep in. We're humans. We're really bad at bad habits, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, and I would say in the same vein, for me, COVID has been a blessing and a curse. So I have an 18-month-old, or he's almost 18 months old, and it was horrific trying to have him at home when daycare was closed, and my wife and I bouncing him back and forth between Zoom meetings. But the blessing was we got to see his first steps, and probably developed a stronger relationship with him when, if at home than if he were at daycare. So we're thankful for that, but.
I absolutely agree. I mean, how amazing. I know my husband worked away for, the last 9 years, didn't see the children's first steps, didn't see many of those milestones. He's been at home now since March, and he's loving it. You know,
Yeah.
he's in the house making lunch for the boys. You know, he does that on a Tuesday while I'm doing this. And, you know, he's home at 5.
Mm-hmm.
You know, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, sometimes 11:30 was quite normal. So no, there's some real blessings.
Yeah.
Well, you all take care and stay safe over there. I'm not going to mention anything about Biden and Trump or anything, but, you know, we're all very grateful, okay?
Yeah.
But yeah, take care. Lots of self-care. Really, really enjoyed chatting to you, Kurt. And I'm booking onto the symposium, so hopefully I'll see lots of other people there as well. Really looking forward to it. It's in towards the end of February. So I think booking closes on, you were going to say like the 17th of February or something like that?
Yeah, deadline to enroll for the symposium is the 17th. The symposium is the 24th and the 25th. We're looking for it to be a great event. And if you can't make the symposium, I'll also add, Nicola and I have been working on a podcast series. So if you go to the KI website, if you go to the symposium link, you'll also go, you can see another bar in the menu where you can click on for podcasts as well. So enlightening stuff about adaption innovation.
Yeah, I can see the podcast. I'm going to just do a quick screen share before we go so people can see. Do a quick screen share of showing everyone where that is. KAI share. There we go. There you go. So you can see there up on the screen.
Yeah, there's a
like. There we go.
there's one series called the Foundation 5, and we meant those to be a little bit more timeless, so that if you just want to get the essence of the theory as relatable to world context and events and exploring the theory, the Foundation 5 is starting. We got one more to add to that. Then the podcast series are discussing just those things. So we talk about KAI and health with Megan Seibel and Rob Samuel at Aetna. We have the what made me think about it, Lesley, was I did a podcast with Jessica Prater on the new normal and what that means, and really think about what's essential and not essential and reorganizing our lives. So yeah, lots of insight there.
Yeah, so go and have a look at that one. That one sounds fascinating. So yeah, it's just on the top bar. Click on podcasts and you'll find those there. So thank you so much, Kurt. Really look forward to the KAI symposium, and hopefully we can have another chat after that and move everything forward. But yeah, thank you so much. It's been really, really fascinating.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a lot of fun and happy to do it again.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was great.
Lots of people say, "Oh, I don't want to do it on screen," and then they do it, and they go, "When can I do that again?"
Right.
No, it is great fun. I really love this medium. This is like our new normal. Is we don't have to just do written stuff. We can do, and in real world stuff, we can do this recording, and we'll turn this into a podcast as well. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you everyone over on Facebook and YouTube. And all of these recordings are there forevermore now, and they're all on the Pure website as well. So yeah, take a look, follow, have a look back, follow us. And yeah, next week, who have I got next week? I have to remind myself, so much going on. Next week, we're talking to Mary Coakley at 1 about grief counselling, because obviously a lot of people are struggling with grief, aren't they? Loss because of the COVID, not just the evident one of losing somebody, but the actual grief of losing your lifestyle. And then in the evening at 6:45, I'm talking to Tabish Khan from The Londonist, who's the art critic. Sorry, you lost me briefly there. The signal here dropped all of a sudden. So yeah, next week we've got 2. So it's a special day. But thank you so much, Kurt, and I'll speak to everyone very soon. Take care, everyone. I will properly, hopefully, end the broadcast this time without it dropping the link. All right, take care, everyone. Bye for now.